Under D'Anton Lynn last year, the defense was the pride and joy for Chip Kelly's squad. In year one under DeShaun Foster, it's a question mark heading into Hawaii, which is why Ikaika Malloe's big men up front have to set the tone in week one.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer, and thanks for making this your first listen each every day. You can get the episode on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy, because 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Zero sugar, it's convenient, portable size, a perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Check out 5hourenergy.com to use the code LOCKEDONCFB to get 20% off your order. Offer only valid until September 30th on one order. It cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Today, where we get started, though, is the likes of a UCLA team that is going against the Hawaii run and shoot. We'll go a little bit more in depth about the run and shoot, but what we're talking about now is Ikaika Malloe's defense, a former co-defensive coordinator at Washington, somebody who has been in the recruiting game, been around the game quite a bit, and now it's his chance to run his team after being in the system last year with D'Anton Lynn. This is his defense to run for UCLA without the elite pass rushers, without Darius Muasau, without some of the top heavy safeties that were young and were quite ready to start in back-to-back years for UCLA, namely Kamari Ramsey and others going to USC alongside D'Anton Lynn. But now it's up to the Bruins to take down Hawaii. And the biggest question mark is not their linebacker room, who only lost their linebacker coach and lost Muasau last year. You got two of the top three tacklers from last year's team coming from that room. It's a veteran DB room, but it's going to start with the pass rush up front. Now you look at Ikaika Malloe. He was asked in one of the last practice media sessions prior to the game heading into Hawaii. It was talking about what are his keys to success. You got to produce a pass rush, all right? You have to produce a pass rush. That was something I was going to say. It's obviously something he knows, produce a pass rush. That is important for what UCLA needs to do this year to have any success. Last year, this is a UCLA team that prided itself being one of the best defenses arguably in UCLA history. So I was doing a little research about what UCLA had that led to so much success. Well, beyond Latu was the ability for the DBs to beat ball hawks like Alex Johnson, Jalen Davies. They recovered some fumbles. They did their best to force turnovers and be a physical defense under D'Anton Lynn. So I looked under Bill Connolly's article about who had the most turnover luck. UCLA, according to analytics provided by Bill Connolly, you look at those SP ratings, whether it's returning players, returning productions, who's going to win, whatever. UCLA was amongst the top 30 or so teams, 33rd in the country, as a team that had turnover luck per game. Now, there's a couple of times where there were balls on the ground that UCLA didn't get. Large in part, UCLA had turnover luck. My thought on last year's team, though, is physical and pass rush. And when you're an extremely physical defense, you're going to knock out a few more. And when you're very good pass rush, you're going to force a lot more terrible decisions by the opposition's quarterback or get a lot more tackles for loss, whatever it may be, okay? So last year, the Bruins did have quite a bit of success when it came to turnover luck per game. And it's really a hard number to say, but the Bruins are expected to regress in not only just points per game, turnovers forced, the amount of pressure in the backfield. That is all expected under this year with Ikaika Malloe, but he's got a lot of seniors. UCLA hit the portal hard to fit the secondary, whether it's KJ Wallace, whether it's, you got Henderson in the back in the secondary, you got Brian Addison. UCLA has a lot of guys, whether it's in their nickel package, whether it's their safety, their strong safety. UCLA has returners at corners, although you wonder how long that Jalen Davies and Devin Kirkwood can hang up there. You got an older secondary with an unproven defensive line where Ikaika Malloe was said to have to the media, we're going to rotate 8 players to go with the hot hands. Shorthand to say, nobody stood out. We have enough to go off of who are starters, but we're going to go and have enough players of equal talent that we can go with fresh legs later in the fourth quarter against a Hawaii team that's probably going to have more athletic, agile offensive linemen as opposed to the big beasts UCLA is expected to face in the trenches in their now transition to the Big Ten Conference. So UCLA must find a way to get to Braden Shager. This is a guy who was a dual threat guy in week one. Maybe didn't necessarily show that in 2023 when Hawaii was going into the run and shoot. But now Hawaii, this is what they got. A dual threat quarterback who was quoted after the game. He knew that they were playing one of the worst teams in the country from 2023 in Delaware State, an FCS team they're expected to beat by 40. As much as coaches and players don't want to read and listen to things like me or newspapers or TV shows, they know what they're expected to be. This is what their quarterback Shager said in, I believe, what was halftime during the game last week. All right, this is what Braden Shager apparently had his high-volume discussion with fellow offensive players at halftime. This is the Hawaii quarterback. Basically, just said it was embarrassing to score 7 points in the first half against an FCS school, playing in the run and shoot. It's not the standard of what we do. Sometimes you need a little butt chewing in order to get everybody right, and I think we came out a bit better with a bit better of a mentality in the second half. That was the Hawaii senior quarterback who only completed 50% of his passes, had 2 touchdowns, no picks, just over 200 yards in a blustery day at the Ching Complex, where there was very terrible storm-like weather that affected both teams. Now, we'll get a little bit more, but the main thing for UCLA is, yes, they got to produce a pass rush, and while it looks like they're solidified on the interior spots of the defensive line, it's the edge rushers that not only have to get pressure, but larger part specifically for this week, keep contained. Because Shager made plays with his legs, 2 rushing touchdowns, didn't really knock down the doors with close to 40 rushing yards after it was all said and done with his net gain at the end of the game. But 2 rushing scores got them into some momentum when there was close to 30-mile-per-hour gusts, I believe, in that Hawaii-Delaware State game. UCLA has to keep Shager contained, which is why a lot of this is pinned on what's happening up front. If you give opposing quarterbacks all day to throw, like last year, Washington, you couldn't get to Michael Penix Jr. And that was a quarterback who was oft injured, but had a great throwing arm. You couldn't touch him. He was delivering dimes to the best receivers in the country, and they literally ran, not the football, but ran with that scheme to the national championship game. If you can't get to the quarterback, then you're going to have a tough time beating some of those teams, and they could just throw bombs down the field for touchdowns, right? That's not exactly what the run and shoot is designed to do. They're designed to manipulate the defense, but UCLA needs a pass rush while disguising a lot of things without bringing a blitz, okay? I was watching something from June Jones, who ran the run and shoot, longtime head college football coach, talks about he'd love to see the blitz. And UCLA, in a year where they might have to utilize a blitz or 2 to generate some pressure in certain situations that they could get from the Murphy twins or Latu, or bringing Madrano once in a blue moon off the edge, they're going to have to live with guys sitting still and relying on their linebackers to sit back in coverage, cover a lot of things that maybe the defensive linemen can't do if they don't get to the quarterback in time. It's a lot of, how many seconds are ticking off the quarterback's head that they have an opportunity to throw. It's keeping the quarterback in containment and making sure they can generate a pass rush. Now, the DBs will be tested if UCLA cannot get a certain pass rush, which is why the run and shoot is super hard to defend. It's quick, it's get out. You're not going to see a lot of sacks, possibly for this UCLA team, but the ability to force pressure and force mistakes by a veteran Hawaii QB will lead to UCLA success and tell us just a small portion of this 2044 chapter of what we expect of DeShaun Foster's team in year 1, right? Even Ikaika Malloe was like talking to the media, we're just trying to follow the 3 pillars. We just have to wait till they put on the pads, the players play the game, and we're going to find out week 1, right? That is not his exact quote. That's kind of piecing quotes together, but larger part, it's we're in wait and see mode. We got to go play the game and figure out what we can do. And he's got to figure out which of the transfer linemen, which of those D linemen are going to suit up and make the plays in the right moments, whether it's 7 to 8 guys that he threw out there on rotation, riding the hot hand of the fourth quarter, which might be shorthand for saying A, who's ever better and more conditioned, or B, who has fresh legs and can make the play at the moment, will get that opportunity. And that opportunity is to play a pretty high-octane offense like Hawaii, which did not showcase in week 1. Talk more about them in the second segment, right? Because what is the run and shoot exactly? And why will they test the secondary if the pass rush fails? Next, a Locked On UCLA. All right, it's college football Saturday. It's coming up. It's that Labor Day weekend, and you know it's the glorious start of the college football season, which means how are you going to stay up? How are you going to stay energized after a long week to prepare for the long weekend, right? It's the football season. It's here. Fall's around the corner. But you're going to need that pick-me-up with the 5-hour energy shot. You can stay alert for all your favorite games, whether it's the quintuple crazy overtime game that's always going to happen late with the West Coast games. You can take your 5-hour energy shot in the morning to start your day with all the preview shows, watch the games, watch more games, and then watch some more. Because they've got zero sugar, which is important because you're going to need one of those, and it's convenient, it's portable. If you're going to a buddy's house and you'd be like, hey, I got to get my energy up. 5-hour energy is the perfect pick-me-up and perfect take-me-over to your buddy's house to use before you enjoy the whole day watching college football. Multiple flavors for everyone, watermelon, grape. You can mix and match with the 12 or 24-pack, and it's delivered right to your door. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com. Get some 5-Hour Energy product today. Use the code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Again, that's LOCKEDONCFB, and the offer is only valid until September 30th on one order. It cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, second segment. What does this Hawaii offense look like, right? Well, you know, with them playing in week 0, having the benefit of normally in a Hawaii season, they play 13 games. They play week 0. They get a bye or 2. This year, this is a Hawaii team that is in their third year under Timmy Chang. They're trying to make some strides with a veteran quarterback who's been around for some time. And they operate in the run and shoot offense, which is similar to what Timmy Chang ran when he was quarterback of the Hawaii team that way back when was a team that beat Alabama when they were under bowl sanctions, all those things in the early 2000s. They like to run high-octane, up-tempo offenses because you got to bring guys to Hawaii. You got to keep them agile. And how do you get kids to Hawaii? Well, you bring the quarterbacks, you bring the receivers, and they can post big numbers. Okay? So what UCLA is going to have to defend is the run and shoot. The idea of the run and shoot is you're going to have guys going on go routes. It's the interior receivers that are going to read whether it's the linebacker or the strong safety coming down to jam, whether UCLA goes to a nickel package and plays with more DBs. It's how do you handle a trips left, trips right formation based on what Hawaii is showing. And large in part, it's a play that's run more like an NFL system slightly, right? You're going to see an NFL scheme and plays in that diversified form with Eric Bieniemy and the complexity of the verbiage that UCLA offensive players are struggling with. The idea that Hawaii is going to play with is the run and shoot. It's large in part the communication, which is why some quarterbacks can or cannot make it to the NFL. It's the read, all right? It's seeing which guy's coming to jam on the line, who's going to stay back. Will I hit this guy in the flat, or am I going to hit this slot receiver up the seam? While the receivers also have to make those same adjustments on the fly. If this guy comes here, I'm going to run past that linebacker or that strong safety and bust him up the seam and get hit for a 15-yard gain by my quarterback. And now, that didn't look so pretty in week 1, but Hawaii also struggled with, pass protection. But Shager's got to be quick. He showcased some dual threat ability. And the run and shoot is also going to struggle a little bit when it's what was quote-unquote what some Hawaii player said. I think I read in the post-game article written by Spectrum News for the Hawaii affiliate. Gusts up to 30 miles per hour, right? I forget if there was hurricane-like conditions around the islands, but it was terrible weather, which can happen. Yes, as much as we love the tropical idea and this beautiful sunshine opportunity, sitting down for a big-time Saturday afternoon football game for Hawaii at the Chin Complex. No, it was terrible weather. It was late night. It was windy. It was ugly weather. So to run the run and shoot offense, as much as they were 40-point favorites, their offense, while they were up 14-0, helped out by a punt return touchdown, only had 7 points against Delaware State, who was 1-10 in 2023. Terrible team coming across the country with limited rest and preparation after they had travel issues. They got a quarterback who probably might be a little more in sync with his receivers. And that's going to come down to the likes of Pofele Ashlock, who was personally named by Ikaika Malloe, the UCLA defensive coordinator, somebody to look out for. He led the team in receptions, receiving yards. And then the joke was amongst the UCLA team, the older brother of Titus Mokiao-Atimalala, apparently in the broadcast, kept getting called Titus. That is Tamatoa, who wants to put up some numbers and make sure his name is known correctly when he plays against his brother. The Mokiao-Atimalala is going to have a fun time with the two brothers playing back and forth on the opposite sides, right? So you got a couple of receivers. Hawaii, I believe, completed passes to 8 separate guys. And if UCLA isn't getting to Braden Shager really quickly, because he's going to have quick drops, quick reads with receivers making quick decisions to go flat, inward slant this way. And if UCLA isn't coming to bracket it on the inner 2 receivers, if they're going trips left, or however Hawaii is going to try and game plan to make UCLA different, it's not just calling the right play. It's the run and shoot. After doing a little more research, you just sit there and they call the play, and that's up to the receivers and the quarterback to be on the same page. As long as there's enough time to make that adjustment happen on the fly based on the right read by the receiver and the right throw decision by the quarterback, then it's tough to defend against, right? It's like those annoying, imagine back in the day, like the wishbone, where it could be, it's annoying. It's not the most dynamic or glamorous, but everybody used to run it. And now what Hawaii is doing is what they've done for quite a while. They'd go athletic, super athletic, right? Coaching schemes. This is why Hawaii almost seems to have a quarterback that would put up thousands of yards a year, a lot of touchdowns. And when they do it well, they got the skill players and a little bit of defense. They can be one of the better teams in the Mountain West, or like back in the day, the WAC, or they would go and beat the Alabamas of the world when they were down to Hawaii in late 2003. So now what UCLA's got to do is, with a revamped secondary, right? You don't got these guys like Kamari Ramsey and I believe Humphrey coming down. They left to go with Danton Lynn. UCLA, this is going to be a big test on the secondary if the pass rush can't do. I got a lot of faith in the linebackers. I just wonder how many they're going to cycle through between the Vaughns, the Oladejos, the Madranos were expected, like those 3, and Ale Cajo, right? They're going to get a lot of time, but they're going to put out a lot of receivers. Boom, boom, boom. And Hawaii didn't get a lot of running. They didn't run a lot other than their quarterback escaping contain and changing the ball game with poor weather with his legs. So most importantly, if he's kept in contain, and even if UCLA isn't generating a lot of pressure up front, that's going to put a lot of strain on your DBs. Left DB starter expected to be Devin Kirkwood, senior. Right DB expected to be the starter, Jalen Davies, redshirt junior, transfer from Oregon, has grown in the last couple of years for UCLA. Safeties, Henderson and Addison, guys who are redshirt seniors, and the guys underneath them, 4 of the 5 are in their 3rd or 4th year coming around, right? So now what UCLA has is a lot of veteran guys who played in 1, 2, maybe 3 spots across the country, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 years. But then you can come around and say, Zach, yes, they played a lot, but why are they bouncing around so much? Are they actually talented? To which I say, fair point. Which now you got veteran guys who can probably handle and disguise a little bit better, and reading and listening. The idea that UCLA could blitz and try to just force Shager into poor decisions probably isn't the right thing to do in this scenario for UCLA, because you slip a tackle. If UCLA's tackling's not up to form, you got a Hawaii team that's got a game under their belt. They can break for a big touchdown, 1 or 2. If you blitz and you get burned on your DBs with a poor miscommunication with a team that can go different routes based on what you're providing. All right, they can go get 40, 50-yard gains. I hope not with this defense. It's a little questionable. That's why you see all these game predictions. Some have Hawaii scoring upwards of 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns. Even if UCLA puts up points, that's the big question mark in this one. So I wonder, can UCLA continue that physical mentality, the ability to force turnovers without the big name stars on this defense that still has a lot of veterans who've been around the block, played in different systems. And while Ikaika Malloe, when they're pressed to what they want his defense to look like, it's respect what DeShaun Foster's 3 pillars are: the discipline, respect, enthusiasm. But how do you do that? You fill your assignments. If they're going to go heavy on the blitz and showcase that in week 1 against the team that runs the run and shoot, probably not the way to go. If they can handle, stay back, the secondary can make plays, read the quarterback's eyes, disguise things, bracket it. Maybe we see a lot of KJ Wallace in this game. Maybe there's a lot of rotated DBs with the amount of pass plays we might see in this one. Then we'll find out. But there's a lot of question marks. And so much is made that UCLA is not going to be good because the defense is bad. But we forget that the offense can generate just as much hype too, because they're kind of held down a little bit by Chip Kelly last year, right? Which is why I'm going to counter the point made by Locked On College Football's host, Spencer McLaughlin, who is even touting UCLA might go 1-11, 2-10 this year. I'm going to counter that next. on Locked On UCLA. All right, you've heard us all talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you right now, because now, until September 22nd, all FanDuel customers, you bet $5 and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then through a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon at a market game. All you need is a Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime, right? So you can get your double dip action to watch those games. And hey, FanDuel, you know what you can do? Get your account and you can have some fun watching the games too. All right. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. And maybe while you're sitting there watching all this football, needing the energy, you also got to eat. So fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals that can help you meet your wellness goals while you're sitting all weekend watching football on the couch. Because there's a menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. They're fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved. And hey, you don't want to miss any of that game. Well, this meal is ready to eat in 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are watching college football, you're going to have nutritious, great tasting meals in 2 minutes. Whether you're by yourself with your friends, Factor Meals is what you got. 35 different meals, 60 add-ons every week, and you always have new flavors to explore from week 1 all the way to the rest of the college football season, if you think about it. And you can treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals with premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, blackened salmon. Feeling spicy up in here, right? Well, all you got to do is head to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off next month. That's the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Check out Factor Meals. All right, so we're wrapping up this show today because I'm a little feisty. I'm a little mad. I've already talked about it a little bit, but I've already, I think, answered some of what the trolls might have said on the internet about UCLA 1-11, 2-10. I think that's a little ludicrous. And barring some sort of ridiculous circumstance where quarterbacks go down in a normal year where UCLA has stability at quarterback, UCLA talent-wise is not a 1-11, 2-10 team, okay? I look the schedule. You get scared when you see the LSU trip. You get scared when you go to Penn State. And in between those, all you're doing is hosting a potential Big Ten preseason champion, college football playoff pick, first-round bye pick in Oregon. And then you got Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin sitting there. UCLA pretty much is going to suck. He didn't say those words, but that's what he basically said. And a lot of it was pointed to the team. Their bread and butter in 23 was the defense. The defense. Okay. Well, there's still a lot of veteran pieces. You got some guys who made a lot of tackles last year, guys who can make plays. The return of Ikaika, who could make the departure of Muasau somewhat of a moot point, although you have to keep an eye on the health of Kaho. The interior defensive line should be somewhat fun to watch. It's the edge rushers where if UCLA can just use a rotation with Ikaika Malloe, continue the pressure from last year, become a physical Big Ten presence defensively, and hope that the veteran stopgap years from Henderson, Anderson, Addison, Wallace, all those guys in the secondary alongside the corners hold up just enough, and UCLA can have not a horrible defense, but an adequate one. We don't need them. I think it's unfair to come out and have the same expectations for a defense. We had no expectations over recent years. UCLA has actually improved in year to years, right? 22 to 23, right? 22, better defense. 23, much better defense. 24, it's not going to be the same because you don't got Latu running around. You don't have the Murphy twins running around. They didn't find those guys we expect in the portal. They did go after a lot of defensive linemen, and they're hitting on those guys in the class of 25, and they'll start eventually doing that in the class of 26. So there might be a dip in the next year or two, depending on what the team's talent looks like and how long it takes to develop year to year. But to say this team's going to be 1-10, 1-11, 2-10 is a slap in the face Because we forget Eric Bieniemy, yes, while the players have publicly acknowledged struggling with the words and the play calling and everything, you're telling me the seniors, so much senior-laden talent, upperclassmen on offense too, that it's rare to say this, but Chip Kelly kind of held this team back last year. Now, it wasn't because of spectacular quarterback play, because Garbers, quite frankly, did not get a chance in a long enough leash. Like me saying, I don't want him. I want to see Dante Moore get out there. And we saw Dante Moore go as much as possible. And most importantly, didn't necessarily have the makeup as a true freshman to handle incredible pressure in his face by the opposing defenses because UCLA's offensive line couldn't hold up. Now, despite, yes, Carlin switching to become a starting center, UCLA, a couple of plug and plays did not work last year on the O-line. I think what UCLA has now with Makaheli at right guard, you got a full offensive line set. The depth is not there across the board for UCLA. They don't have a depth with talent. They got some youth. They got some guys they found, and they had to replace what Chip Kelly left UCLA's ruins was, which was the class of 24. Kind of forgotten, and it fell off the table. Yet, when you're talking about, like Spencer was, one of the best talented pieces on UCLA's team offensively, you got Logan Loya. He's the number 2 guy on the depth chart. Now he's going to get his snaps. He's going to get his catches, his yards, a touchdown or two, right? He can do all those things in week 1, being number 2 in the depth chart for all week here. But that's how much talent UCLA has in the receiver room. Even UCLA's mediocre offensive line, they could still run the football. And they got TJ Harden. And we're actually going to use UCLA Keegan Jones, who was forgotten on the bench. And when he was finally used, he was an important piece in a win over a Washington State team that was ranked at the time, regardless of how the Cougars finished the season. Jones was a highlight reel in that game. And UCLA's number 1 receiver over Loya was a guy completely forgotten about by EA Sports College Football 25. He wasn't even on the roster. And he went out and earned the quote-unquote number 1 spot on the depth chart in week 1, which means a lot, but not a lot when it comes to who's running the big routes during the season. And now you got a veteran quarterback whose numbers, 67% completion rate, 11 touchdowns, 3 picks. When he started and completed a game, UCLA did not lose when he started and completed the game. When he finished the game, actually, UCLA did not lose. When he finished the game, like when he came in relief of Schlee in the bowl game, came up, 3 touchdowns, offensive MVP in the LA Bowl. And I'm not going to say he is a quarterback that is ready to win the Heisman, but you look at all the other quarterbacks in the Big Ten, okay, like Oregon is stashing all the quarterbacks. There's a lot riding on the arm of Miller Moss to be the next Caleb Williams. And then Will Howard, yes, he's good. But I'm wondering who's going to take the mantle as the 4th best quarterback? True freshmen? Transfers? Guys who are mediocre going from Big Ten school to other Big Ten school? Or the quarterback who had the numbers to kind of back it up once he had an opportunity with now an offense driven more towards a veteran quarterback and his IQ and a leader like Garbers is, where the UCLA offense, as it has and probably should have been last year, a driving force to UCLA's success, although the defense took that mantle and ran with it for a team that somewhat underachieved in 23. I just look up and down the schedule, and I don't see a team that's only going to win 1 to 2 games. Whether you're looking at a Hawaii or a Fresno State or an Indiana or Minnesota, 50-50, that's a little ridiculous. And I do think UCLA will steal some of these road games. Not like in bulk 3-4 in ridiculous circumstances, but I do think UCLA is going to win a road game they're not supposed to, whether it's going to Washington, a surprise in Nebraska, right? True freshman quarterback, Washington, literally replacing the whole coacher staff, culture coach, everything. I don't see how a 1-10, 1-11, 2-10 team is going to exist this year for UCLA. It struggles. And maybe I'm going to have to eat crow later this year, but I think Spencer's a little off base when it comes to this team being horrible like that. Now, this team could be horrible if the offensive line is not good. If they struggle protecting the quarterback consistently, then that would be a major issue. If the defense is, say, as bad as, LSU's was last year or in the 120th ranks because they lost talent and a defensive coordinator, Yes, that doesn't matter how many points Bieniemy puts up. The defense could be way worse. I just don't see that because they have coach who's in the room. It's not like he hasn't done this before, despite having co-defensive coordinator at his leisure at Washington. He's been around in Ikaika Malloe. It can't be just a complete drop-off. If anything, the drop-off is possible in 25 when all the seniors and all the guys who have used up their COVID years for the most part, the 7th, 8th, 20th year players are all gone. When Garbers is gone. When they have to rely upon a quarterback who had to battle for a backup spot or a true freshman next year, whatever it might be, a guy who hasn't seen any time. A lot of receivers will be gone next year. So will some of these offensive linemen. And next year's probably won't be ready, and you got some senior talent defensively that won't be here next year. It's almost like a year too early to predict UCLA is going to ultimately be terrible. I think we're forgetting they can be talented enough to make a bowl and surprise one or two in a top-ranked game. I think they have what it takes. Yes, it's unproven. It's unwarranted territory with Bieniemy coming back, trying to translate his NFL genius into what can be digested by his, college players. But Chip Kelly held them back last year, and it took me a long time to see it. But we got to take off those Oregon Duck lenses, those rose-colored lenses, it seemed like, for a while, and realize we might be a year away from the middle talent, where Chip Kelly forgot to recruit and keep this team good with juniors, sophomores, seniors in 25. And as much as you can bring talented freshmen in for next year for DeShaun Foster, I think next year might be that dip as opposed to this season. It's the balance between, have we been hating on the Pac-12 too hard, or is the Big Ten overrated? What is it? We will find out, and I'll be excited to. Okay, I'm not saying they're going to go beat Oregon, number 3 in the country, or go shock LSU, Oregon, and Penn State in 3 straight weeks. But to say they're going to go 1-11, 2-10 is just a little ludicrous to me. Little ludicrous. Frustrating. Dumb. We'll have a chat about it when they play Oregon in a few weeks. All right? A little ridiculous. But we should have fun cheering on the UCLA Bruins in week 1 versus Hawaii, which is why I'm excited to get your hands up. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Stay tuned for your full game preview for the next episode of Locked On UCLA and your post-game reaction here on Locked On UCLA. Thanks for tuning in. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.